City Hall, 790 North Homestead Boulevard. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Councilman Burgess.
Here.
Councilwoman Logos. Councilman Maldonado.
Here.
Councilman Shelley.
Here.
Councilman Williams.
Here.
Vice Mayor Woolman.
Here.
Mayor Bateman.
Here. Okay. Special order of business, City Attorney, you want to open up with that, or you want me to get a motion to move it on the floor? How about a motion to move it on the floor? Second, thank you. Sir, it's all yours. Want to read it, the topic, the basic of it? Do you want to give us a...
Here, what we have on the floor is a motion to approve a resolution. As you all know, the staff has been working with Lale to come to an agreement that, at your direction. Ignacio Del Valle, Marlene Volker, and Ray Mannion have done the bulk of the work on this, but what we have here is a recommendation for the mayor and city council to approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a lease and purchase sale agreement with Valle Sports Complex at the city of Homestead. The lease term is for 7 years. The closing of the purchase sale is scheduled for a date no later than the 7th anniversary of the effective date of the execution of the lease in the amount of $16 million. We have a benefits and summary of terms sheet attached as Exhibit 1, which we'd be happy to go over with at your request. And so we need a motion for that.
Okay, let's open up for some questions. We have the motion and second on the table. But let's open up to council for any questions, comments from the original contract to what we have now, the new contract. Do we have any questions on the floor? Does anybody like to discuss anything at all? Left, right, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I just had two clarifications I wanted to make sure I was clear on the benefits and summary of the terms. When it deals with the July 4th event and the 4 days, I just want to be clear, that's not just the stadium itself, that's kind of the entire property, is that correct, my understanding? So that if we have a bigger event that expands outside the stadium, we have the use of it, is that correct?
Councilman Shelley, members of council, that is correct. We have the full usage of the total stadium complex, and it's described as in the attachment to the contract.
Okay. And then my second question deals with, it kind of addressed to Lale, and they can answer it when they get up to the podium. But I know that right now, you know, one of the things that I raised when we originally started negotiations or talks about this idea was that we have a lot of youth organizations that participate or use those facilities right now. And I've taken a tour. You guys have done some great things over there and put a lot of money into it. The fields are in much better shape. But I know that right now, you know, unfortunately, those organizations don't necessarily have a place to go. We're working on some of our parks coming online, which will help ease some of that burden. But I just want to make sure that you guys are still willing to work and cooperate with these organizations and provide use or rentals of these fields at a reasonable price, because, you know, again, these organizations don't have a lot of money, but they have a lot of kids that do need places to play. So I just want to make sure that you know, can commit on the record that you are going to go ahead and go forth with that.
Oh, please. Yeah.
Good evening again. Well, it seems like we're at the last day of this long journey, but to answer your question, yes, this is what we're doing, and I'd like to be very clear. I think I've been very clear from day one, and I want to make sure there's no misunderstandings. When we stood up here the first time around, we explained that back then they were using the baseball fields to play soccer. That isn't a possibility because of all the money that's gone into it. It really destroys a field, and quite frankly, it's dangerous to play in that fashion because there's a lot of coral that we found in the fields back where the softball fields are located. As far as the softball leagues are concerned, those are ongoing. I think people are happier than they ever were before. There is some area which was designated as parking area, and that is what we're looking at to establish not only soccer fields but football fields as well. I think that there are several organizations that have been using that. We don't even charge them for the use. I think one of the gentlemen is Tim from the AYSO that's been speaking with us. So our goal is to, yes, do that. Now there are some potential barriers to that, which is we have the restriction with the with the base that may prohibit or distinguish the use of that area because from last I read, the code indicates that if you're going to have more than 50 people for a prolonged period of 4 to 6 hours, you can't do that. So as long as we deal with those issues, yes, our goal is to open up the stadium and all of our surrounding areas to soccer, lacrosse, anything that's a sport, and even those things that are just arts. So to answer your question directly, yes, subject to our limitations of not destroying, that which we've done, which I think you understand. But we pretty much, and I think all the council members know, and Mr. Mayor as well, that we've worked with just about everybody. And I think I remember Mayor Bateman asked, and one of the times that we came here, he said, Mr. Reeves, I hope that you really come through with what you're saying that you're promising. And frankly, we feel as an organization that we have exceeded that which we've promised. We've gotten it done quicker than we thought that we were going to be able to. I think the businesses already are enjoying the fact that there's a substantial number of people. They leave there and they go eat, whether it's Casabanas or it's Longhorn. I always get confused with or Roadhouse, which is the movie. But anyways, yes, I mean, that's all working very positively. So the fields were in much worse condition than, we even anticipated. We've had, numerous issues from roof leaks to, air conditioning issues. We've dealt with pretty much everything as quickly as we have been able to.
Thank you.
Don't go away. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say that Parks and Recs is working on solving issues, and we had an open meeting, and Mr. Shelley came to our meeting, and I hope that you'll feel comfortable that the director of Parks and Recs over there and the team will solve those issues. As far as I'm concerned, I told you from the very beginning that my girl was expensive, and she was going to cost a lot of money. And you said you were used to it.
Yeah.
So you got used to it quicker than you thought.
No, we're not really complaining, but obviously, like with anything else, when you start opening doors, things, start developing that you didn't anticipate.
But what I was going to say was that from where we started, it's wonderful. Wonderful, and I'm so happy. I ride by there. I just ride by there just to look at it, and it's so different. It's so beautiful. You've brought life back into that property. You've brought life back into the stadium, and I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled that you're here in Homestead.
Well, I appreciate that, but I don't take the credit for it. My organization takes the credit for it because you know what? As you well know, that gentlemen like Laz and everybody else that works for our company, they put a lot of long hours. I mean, we finished there last night like at 12:30 at night. I should better say 12:30 in the morning.
I saw you on television.
Well, I was on television. The staff was there because there was a game that was still ongoing. There's a lot of positive things that will develop from this stadium in particular, starting with this Saturday. We want to invite all the council members and integrate people that are business owners from the city, as well as the residents of the different areas around the stadium, so that they can come and see exactly what's there and do a little bit more to give back to the kids. I mean, we brought Maria Garza, which was excellent. She brought some kids, that ended up playing there. We didn't charge them to play there. So, we're integrating a lot of the young kids that don't have the financial resources to have fun, learn, share the experience with everybody. So we're very excited about that. Now, on July 21st, we're expecting over 25 international teams, and that will probably be the busiest week from July 22nd to July the 28th.
One thing I did want to clarify, that when you say, I don't have it right in front of me, but the 4th of July, that's just an option, right? And we're going to talk about that.
Yes, that's another thing. I'm glad you brought that up. What we envision, and frankly, what we've seen throughout these tournament dates, and, you know, we were involved with the Homestead Speedway this
Yes.
last time and brought out the music and so forth, and that worked out very well.
Thank you.
What we think is we would not like to have a situation where the city says, well, we're going to do the 4th of July and you guys completely leave. We'd like to work together, quite frankly, because I think that we can accomplish a lot working together. And, you know, we open our doors and, you know, everybody from the city has been fantastic with our organization as well. And we work together very well. I mean, we've made, you know, great friendships with people from the city. And there's no reason why we can't get an event like the 4th of July, or for that matter, any other event, and let the citizens of this city and residents enjoy a 4th of July event like none other before.
And I want to thank you for coming on board so quickly with the Cinco de Mayo event that we had, the festival. You really stepped up to the plate big time. So I was panicked with that production, but it came off beautifully, and I want to thank all of you for helping with that. So
I appreciate that.
Comments to my colleagues.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr.
for you to staff, I guess to Marlene, do we have any idea of what the ad valorem tax bill might be if it was to come down, just, you know, any kind of round figure, just so we kind of know what that income to the city might be?
The city's portion, based on 16 million, would be approximately somewhere between 90 and 100,000.
So that's assuming that the tax appraiser would put that figure on there.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Maldonado. Talk to me a little bit about the portion of the naming rights.
Okay.
Make me feel better about that.
Maybe you can make us feel better, but let's discuss
Make me feel better.
it. Here's where we started. When we originally came and made an offer, it was, in essence, a $1 lease. At that point in time, it was $0 lease, and basically we would restore the stadium to what we would call playing conditions, based on everything that we had done there, and the offer did not include payment of the real estate taxes. Marlene, which I'm trying to see if I could hire, a lawyer.
Marlene, that's why you retired.
So, Marlene, you know, quite frankly, has been very instrumental in getting this done and fights very hard for the city.
Amen.
So she brought up an issue, which is, you know, if you guys go in there, you're a private entity. There's a case from the Florida Supreme Court called Sebring, which will kick in the requirement to pay property taxes. So at that point in time, our offer was increased to go ahead and pay for the property taxes. And then we dealt with a gentleman by the name of Ray, and we went back and forth. Bottom line is, from the point in time that we made our original offer, from our entity's perspective, we've come up with paying real estate taxes, plus, Laz will correct me if I'm wrong, it's $500,000 or $525,000. Okay, $525,000 for the next 7-year time period, up until the time that we buy the stadium for the $16 million. There was either miscommunication or misunderstanding, because our understanding was that part of what we were paying, which was $275,000, was for naming rights. I believe Ray and maybe Marlene were of the opinion that that pertained to 9 fields other than the main stadium. It was our understanding that it included everything. So we went back and forth, and the only issue that remains is that the last contract, which is the contract that we see here, has a provision whereby if we get a sponsor for the main field, the city would get 50%. LA Sports would get the other 50%. That is much higher than what we envisioned. And this is a reality of what's going to transpire, which is the reason why, you know, we need to kind of like iron this out. We work with salespeople, and our salespeople make commissions. And they will try to sell whatever they can sell to make the most money possible. Running the stadium, I can tell you firsthand, even though our entity was equipped to do it, and we've been able to do it, and hopefully it'll be a very successful stadium production as far as everything we're doing, it's not an easy task. You have to bring the people in. If it rains, just so that you get an idea, every time it rains, we lose about $7,000 or $8,000 a day. And it's rained probably a good 6 days. And when I say rain, if it rains 2 or 3 hours, we can still play after. But it's rained like the entire day. We've had to cancel. So that creates a hole in the revenue. Now, as we move forward, what our vision was to bring a main sponsor to the stadium to sponsor the stadium along with some other rights and propaganda around the stadium itself. A percentage as high as 50% puts a real strain on that, whereby the reality is that even though it looks good, the end result to the city will be less than if we frame it in some other fashion. That's the reality of how it works, because as our enterprise moves forward, if we have to give 50% to the city for something that we wouldn't have to give 50% to the city, moving in other areas, part of our organization works off of advertisement. And this is part of what we had envisioned. So, I put it out on the table. Again, we just want to move forward. If the city thinks that having a 50% provision in there is going to work better for the city, I personally feel, and I've always been very upfront with the city, I don't think that that's the best thing. If they want to put something like a 10 or 15%, the sale will happen. If you leave a 50% there, it makes no sense for us to move forward with that side of it. And even though the 50% looks good, 50% of nothing is a lot less than 10 or 15% of something.
Sure. Well, let me hear the city side. Who's best first on this?
Well, I think the two issues. Number one was the city wanted approval if they sell it to somebody else, because we wanted to make sure if there's a name on the building that you were comfortable, whether it's this council, another council, future councils, the community. If they have a concern about the name on the building, we wanted say in that. So that's the first piece of this. And the second piece is if they sell it for a large amount of money, we're concerned that the taxpayers may feel like they got short-handed because, they sold something for $250 and they ended up, somebody else sold it for a lot more. So that was really the logic behind this, and it's totally a policy decision. So we have it in here like all other items in negotiations. We take a position that ultimately you guys decide.
Thank you. Let me take it one step further and ask the city attorney. You talk about just selling the naming rights and citizens, and council and taxpayers are happy with what we've done. What about a signable? A signable, I'm sure, is in the contract. What if they sell the whole ball of wax?
Mayor, I'm going to refer that question to Ignacio, who is chair of the firm's real estate department, who negotiated and drafted the lease.
Can you please, what is your question
My
specifically?
question is not just the naming rights that the manager's a little concerned about, and I'm concerned about the value that they get for it versus what the city gets out of it. But what about selling the entire operation called assignable? I'm sure in the contract this thing's assignable, and they can flip this entire operation at any time they want. Can they not?
No.
We're not going to tell them they can't pay us the $16 million before 7 years. If they pay us in the 5th year or the 3rd year $16 million and flip it and sell it, maybe things are going great. This guy's a good operator,
Yeah.
And maybe he flips it, and so what do? We say, well, we made a good deal for the city. We sold it for exactly what we had in it.
If you're saying that they can sell it after they purchase it?
Well, couldn't they sell it before? All we're asking
No.
for is $16 million.
No.
It's not assignable.
No.
They cannot come and pay it off.
No.
Prior to
They
7
can
years.
pay it off. The lease is for 7 years. At any time during that period of
7
time,
years.
if they want to close and buy the property,
Correct.
as opposed to leasing, they can give us a notice 6 months prior written notice and put up a $500,000 deposit. Okay. Then once they close, they own the thing lock, stock, and barrel. And they pay us $16 million, and they can do whatever they want.
Whatever they want. They can sell.
Absolutely, that's true. But they need to close on the purchase.
That's what I meant. If they've got somebody here for $25 million, they're going to definitely close for the purchase and come up with it, sell it,
Yes.
and flip it. And are we happy with? Let me finish. Are we happy with what type of name the new outfit puts on it.
We have the ability to approve or disapprove the name.
But we don't, if
Before they sell it, before we sell it.
Once the asset is closed on, whether it's before the 7 years or at the 7th year, then they own the asset.
they own it.
But I think your question was for that first 7 years, we have control over those naming rights. And so I think that's really what's at issue here is, while the city owns the asset, we thought that you'd want to have control over what's on that building. And that was really, once they own the asset, then we figured that's their asset to do with what they want.
And I think it's important to note, Mr. Mayor, also that even if we buy the asset, the city continues to benefit from us owning the asset because the traffic still continues to come in. So the same benefits that exist during the lease term continue to exist after a purchase of it, because it's really the same operation, quite frankly. By that time, it's probably grown, much bigger than what it is now and will be next year, so that there'll be a lot of benefits to the city from that perspective.
And Mayor, I think during the negotiation process, Mr. Ruiz made a very good point, which is once he owns the asset, he doesn't really feel that the government should have a whole lot of say in his business operation. And our point was, we agree with that, but while the city owns the asset, we should have some say, and that was really the logic behind that provision.
I agree. You've done a great job. It's my responsibility to ask the tough questions so that the taxpayers say, look, they flipped this thing and they sold it for $25 million, and now it's...
Listen, if somebody comes to complain, all we need to do is tell them everything Marlene's done for the city. They're going to be very happy. If the citizens and residents of Homestead have Marlene there, they have nothing to worry about. Put her to negotiate every deal that you have. She definitely did a good job for them. So, you know what? Again, sometimes we can lose and transition, and that issue came up during the negotiations, which is, we want to make sure that because of what happened with the Speedway and so forth, that the citizens and residents make sure that we got a good deal as a city with La Ley Sports. And we can't lock ourselves up in that position, because sometimes you're forcing the issue here and you're missing out on something much bigger. And the something much bigger is what we have now. Everything's not, again, and I know you understand that, so, a lot of people listen to what we have to say here. You know what, we all, are employed to make money, and, organizations are supposed to make money, but, there's some things that it's not just all about money.
I hear you.
And this is something really positive that's, happened for us as an organization and for the city, and that's what we want to do, keep the great relationship that we have moving forward.
Again, you've done a great job, and it's tough questions that I felt were important to ask. I asked them, you've answered them. I use your same strategy every day downtown and all over the city. A bird in the hand is better than two in the bush.
Yes.
I promise you. Simple as that. So thank you for your answers.
Appreciate it.
I'm through.
Mayor, are you finished?
Yes, sir.
So is the question here, basically what we're trying to nail down is the percentage. The 50% is not going to work, which it's understanding where if we first started at $1 a year, you can see where the 50% is somewhere we're going to make money. But if the terms have changed, we still have there's still the issue of naming rights, which under the lease option, we do have the opportunity. And so I guess the question is what's going to be the percentage that we're willing to go, or that Marlene and yourself are willing to negotiate in order to...
Well, we'd like to, resolve this issue here today, because I want to put this to rest. But going back for a moment, we are already paying $275,000 for naming rights. The real issue here, which is what I explained in our position, is that $275,000 for 9 fields, nobody would ever pay anywhere near $275,000 for fields that aren't the main stadium. That's as if you went to either Harris Field or some other field and said, I want a company to name whatever field you have on there. You'd never get that amount of money. Under our interpretation of what we had done is that we had paid $275,000 for the naming rights of the main stadium, because the other fields really didn't have a value. Where we are today is that we're paying $275,000, and in addition to that, there's a provision in here that says that it's 50% of the stadium. So the reality is that we would pay $275,000 plus 50% of what the main stadium would produce by way of an advertiser to come in. That's the situation that we're in. What I'm proposing is to basically finalize it, is to put in like a 15% provision as opposed to a 50% provision. That will open the doors for us to want to bring somebody in. Because if we don't do it like that, it makes more logical sense to get those sponsors to do other things and not name the field. I'll just leave it as LA Sports Complex or the LA Sports Stadium and try to drive the revenue elsewhere. If you give me a 15%, then I can do it, and it makes sense for the city and for our organization. What I'm trying to explain is that a 50% provision in here is like if you had no provision whatsoever and there's no sale going to occur. And that's the reality. That's why I'm being upfront. I think it makes more sense if you logically think about it to put a percentage where it works for both of us. Right now, 50% sounds great for the city, but it doesn't work for us.
And Mayor, just for the record, what you have before you in the agreement is the 50% and the city approval requires, so just so you understand.
No, we'd have to modify, yeah.
Me.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Well, first of all, the naming rights would never be valued like this if you didn't have the operation and the production company and all the other things that come with it. You know, the perfect example was Harrisville. You know, you just can't compare apples to apples because it's not apples to apples, because it wouldn't be worth anything if you didn't have the ability to go out there and internationally market this campus.
Right.
That's just my 2 cents. As far as that 7-year period, which for all I know, you may want to close earlier than that, you know, but
I hope so.
that's what I think you will do. But in that 7 years, you're talking about the 15%, which I have no problem with that. And I would be willing to ask that we could amend the motion to say that. But do you have a problem with coming back to council for a meeting of the minds as to the name that would be on there if there was a name to be on there?
No, at all. I mean, look.
So that would stand?
Absolutely. Again, I think that this has to be a partnership. I think, you know, Laz said it best when he created his first presentation. It said, you know, private-public partnership, and that's pretty much what we've done up to now. And what I'm trying to convey to the council members and Mr. Mayor is that we wanted to do it in such a way so that it works. There's no sense in putting, you know, there's a big difference between theory and reality. And in theory, it looks good on paper, but in reality, then it won't work, because one of the good points you just raised is the fact that there's a servicing cost to putting somebody's name up on a field. I mean, somebody just doesn't put up their name and it stays like that. There's a lot more involved in it. You got to do a lot more for that merchant than just put up the name. So there's costs associated with it, which is not envisioned within this agreement.
By the way, Marlene's last day is Friday, and we're going to miss her so terribly.
She's coming to work for us.
Just thought I'd throw that in. But I would like to offer that amendment to Mr. Burgess. I seconded the motion. I don't know what he's thinking over there, but I'd like to offer that.
Burgess, you want the floor?
I need a minute to digest and think. I was just trying to think through some numbers here and trying to think, you know, 15%. Obviously, he's a businessman, and if he doesn't want to sell it, we're not going to get anything out of that 50%. You know, they could bring the people in other ways. 15%, I was thinking I had written down 20% when we started. I don't know if that's a feasible number with Mr. Ruiz and his organization or not.
Listen, if 20% does it, you know, like I said, I want to make the city happy. We want to move forward.
We have to make sure everybody can justify it. I mean, if it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for us either.
Okay.
You know, I had written down 20% when the conversation started.
Well, that's what I had
He
in
offered
mind,
up
but
15. I said, if he's offering 15, maybe there's a little more, you know. A good car salesman doesn't give up early. So,
You've been to too many auctions.
yeah. I would try to see if we could get 20% for the city in it, and if he's agreeable to that, then he is. If not, then I could probably digest the 15, but I would certainly like to try to get the 20. That's the number I wrote down, and the number that I kind of had in my mind when I came in here today. I know that Ms. Waldman said 15.
Well, I said 15 only because, I'm sorry, I said 15 only because it wouldn't be worth anything if they weren't the organization that they are. I mean,
Right.
it really wouldn't be worth anything at
No.
all. So if you can squeeze 20% out of them, I mean, I
Yeah,
think that's
maybe-
great, and I'll be happy to offer
He
that.
kind of shook his head yes, so...
So take him while he's got it, I'll offer it to, do the amendment at
I would amend
20%.
it up to, from 50 to 20%, and if he's agreeable, and if that works for them, because like I said, it has to work for both parties. Without them being able to sustain the budget that they need to keep everything going out there, it doesn't do us any good. So if that works for them, it works for me, and I would make a motion of 20%.
So let's do this fast before he changes his mind.
So I'll offer up to 20%
And I'll
as
second.
an amendment.
Okay, well, we need to go out to the public before we can roll and ratify it, right? So, any further questions from council? Hearing no further questions from council, I'll open the public hearing. Any questions from the public at this time on this issue? Hearing none, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And any final questions from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just for clarification, the contract is, all the language in the contract is the same except for changing the 50% to 20%, correct?
That's correct.
Is that correct? Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor and a second. If you want to phrase the motion that we're going to vote on first, we're going to vote on it's corrected, and then the original body.
Well, I think you're just giving staff direction at this point to bring back to you on the agenda. Oh, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry. Forgive me. No, I think you can vote on the amendment first, and then the final document, yes.
I was just trying to clarify. First the amendment, yes.
So the first
Is amendment.
is for the 20%.
First is the motion and second on the 20%.
Okay. And the second,
And then the next motion is going to be on the approval of the resolution incorporating the lease as
We're
amended.
going to do a roll call vote on the 20% versus 50%. That is the correction on the contract. It's an amended motion. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Councilman Shelley,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Woolman,
yes.
Councilman Burgess,
Yes.
Councilman Maldonado,
Yes.
Mayor Bateman.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now we're going to vote on the contract as it's written with that amendment added. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Councilman Maldonado,
Excuse me.
Two contracts, the lease agreement and the purchase and sale agreement.
Okay, can we cover that under one, or we
Yeah,
we
yeah.
vote separately? Okay.
Yeah. oh,
Yeah,
no,
the resolution covers both,
Go
but
ahead.
you just clarified that the lease is amended
Okay,
as you all.
the lease and purchase sale agreement, as it's written here in the body. Okay. Lease and purchase sale agreement.
Yes.
Yes, and the purchase and sale agreement is an exhibit to the lease. I think
Right.
one would suffice.
The amendment of the 20% from 50 to 20% is in the lease agreement. But we are amending that and then approving, I understand,
The lease.
the lease as amended and the purchase agreement as it is.
Correct. So then
You could read the resolution if you want more time.
Well stated. As stated for the record, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Councilman Maldonado,
Yes.
Councilman Shelley,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Woolman,
Yes.
Councilman Burgess,
Yes.
Mayor Bateman.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, any further questions before we close this?
Welcome to Homestead.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you've done, and start putting this on your calendar, so.
I will. First one is this Saturday.
Yeah, so in advance, just have somebody start emailing our staff people so that we have it on our calendar, all right?
Okay.
We appreciate
Thank you.
that.
Appreciate it.
Very much.
Hey, gentlemen.
All right, motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right. We are in line for our next meeting. 5 minutes, take a little 5-minute recess.